Welcome to 1972 in Review. This is occurrences from week 10 of my 1972 baseball season. Game I want to start off talking about was the Cleveland Indians on Sunday, June 25th. Sunday, June 25th is the earliest, actual vivid memory I have of being at the ballpark. I remember being at a game where the Indians batted around in the first inning, and the pitcher batted as well. That pitcher was Mike Kilkenny. So fast forward to 1986. My ship is in Victoria, Canada. There was a World Expo there that year. And while we were in Victoria, I found a comic book store to check out. I always found comic book stores, it seemed like, no matter where we went. In the store, they had the old some of the old Sporting News baseball guides, the ones that were the little white books with like the four pictures on the front, and they were shaped like a perfect square. I found one for 1973, one which I had actually had as a kid in 1973, and I was looking to see if some of my memories of 1972 were correct. I was looking so that I remembered who the Indians played on opening day, Milwaukee, and I remembered the correct score and all that. And then I looked and saw the game that Kilkenny won, and it turned out that that was game two of a doubleheader against the Yankees on a Sunday. As I said, June 25th. And in real life, the Indians swept that doubleheader. And I was there with my dad and my grandfather. My dad would have been happy, and my grandfather would have been ecstatic that the Indians swept the Yankees. But that was a day that I was looking forward to playing on this game because, like I said, it's my earliest vivid memory of game action. I was at games before this, but don't remember like any specific moments from those games. And in my APC universe, the Indians split that doubleheader, but they won game two on June 25th. Although Mike Kilkenny didn't start for them in this game, it was Gaylord Perry. And the Indians won the game 6-4. In fact, they had a 5-1 lead going into the eighth inning. The Yankees scored two in the eighth. The Indians followed that with a run. And the Yankees scored a run in the ninth, but Perry was able to nail it down to get complete game and raise his record at 8-6. All right, let's see. California got some news that they didn't like. Andy Messersmith, who let's see, he started the season 6-1 with a 0.82 ERA. Has tendonitis, and he had exploratory surgery. So he's expected to be out for at least another month or so. He went down with an injury at the end of May. His last start was May 27th. And just for perspective, this is week 10, so it's games through June 25th. And he had thrown 3 shutouts in a row before he got shut down by the tendonitis. And coincidentally or not, the Angels are no longer in first place. Right now, they're in third place, 3.5 back behind Oakland. On Monday, Oakland beat Detroit 4-2. Oakland had a 10-game winning streak at this point. Jim Hunter got the win. He had started the season 5-0. And he's won 2 in a row now, so his record is 8-3. So after going 5-0, he went 1-3. And let's see, it says for me to check out the details about Louis Tiant on Monday with the Red Sox. Yeah, Tiant beat Texas. Red Sox beat Texas 8-4, and Tiant had a season high 11 strikeouts that game. This season, Tiant has rebounded nicely after his poor showings in '69 with the Indians, in 1970 with the Twins, and with the Red Sox last year. He was like one of the near. He was like on the short list in 1968 for the Cy Young Award, but declined ever since then. That this is be turning into a nice comeback season for him. And that same night, the Astros beat the scuffling Mets 15-5. Tommy Helms, Houston's new second baseman, had 5 hits that night. On Tuesday, the Yankees had a 10-inning win over the Royals, 4-3. New York moved into second place past Cleveland that night. Oakland beat Detroit 7-2. They moved into first place past Kansas City. That had given Oakland 11 wins in a row, while Cleveland split a doubleheader with Minnesota. Going into the second game of that doubleheader, Cleveland had a 4-game losing streak. And let me check what happened that game. And then in the bottom of the first, Cleveland was leading 2-0. Minnesota came up and after 2 walks, a single, and an error, Milt Wilcox had the bases loaded with nobody out, but he was able to get out of that inning without getting scored on, and the Indians went on to a 10-4 win. So that ended a 4-game losing streak for the Indians. The Indians been having a rough time the last week and a half. And Cincinnati beat Montreal that night 4-0. Gary Nolan, who's been pitching pretty good this year. Let me find him. He threw a shutout that night. Yeah, that raised his record to 6-2. Now the next night, Wednesday, Cleveland and Minnesota was Gaylord Perry versus Jim Perry. That, I believe, let me double check. I believe that's the second time that they've pitched against each other this year. Yeah, they pitched against each other on June 9th in Cleveland. Cleveland won that game 3-2. Both teams scored 2 runs in the ninth inning, but neither of the Perrys factored in the decision. That was an excellent pitcher's duel. Gaylord Perry going 8 2/3 innings, giving up 5 hits and 2 runs. Jim Perry went 7 innings, gave up only 2 hits. That was a game in the bottom of the ninth with 1 out and the bases loaded, or 2 outs and the bases loaded. Buddy Bell, the rookie, hit a single, drove in 2 runs, and Indians won the game. Now, the second Perry matchup, this was on June 21st. This was in Minnesota. And Minnesota hung on, won that game 2-1. Both of the Perrys threw a complete game, and it was another excellent pitcher's duel. Jim Perry gave up 4 hits. He gave up 1 run. He walked 1. He struck out 2. Gaylord Perry pitched 8 innings, gave up 4 hits, gave up 2 runs. One of those was unearned. Walked when he struck out 4. Gaylord Perry's record is now 7-6. Jim Perry went to 7-4. Yeah, the game turned. Rod Cruz scored an unearned run in the first, and then Steve Braun scored in the sixth. He walked and then scored on a Harmon Killebrew double. And Buddy Bell drove in the Indians' only run of the game. That was also in the sixth inning. That was a good game. That was one of the best games I played this season. Cleveland dropped into fourth place after that game because Boston beat Texas 7-5, and Boston moved into third place. San Francisco smacked the Cubs pretty hard that day, 15-1. And San Diego beat St. Louis 5-4 when Ohio State alum Steve Arlen threw 10 strikeouts that game. That was a good appearance by him, maybe the best appearance he's had as a major leaguer. And then Oakland beat Detroit 4-2. Oakland has a 12-game winning streak at this point. Ken Holtzman threw 90 pitches. 77 of those were strikes, so he threw 13 balls in the whole game. And the game report said that he had like double negative stuff. That made me kind of laugh. Holtzman had he'd gotten off to kind of a slow start with Oakland. But he has a 5-game winning streak now. Last time he took a loss was May 22nd against the Angels. He had started out the season 0-4, and now he's 7-5. Let's see. Baltimore beat California 2-1. Clyde Wright of the Angels threw a two-hitter but lost the game. Dave McNally of Baltimore gave up 12 hits, but California was only able to score 1 run. And then the Astros beat the Mets 3-2. Tom Griffin got 10 strikeouts for Houston. On Friday, California beat Oakland 3-1. That ended Oakland's 12-game winning streak. Kansas City beat Minnesota 4-1. That put California and Kansas City both at a half game behind Oakland. And Cincinnati beat Houston 1-0. Jack Billingham threw a one-hitter for the Reds against his former team, the Astros. And Los Angeles beat the Braves 10-1. Frank Robinson hit 3 home runs that night. He had 4 runs batted in. On Saturday, the Cardinals beat the Mets 8-1. That gave Bob Gibson his 10th win of the year. So at this point, there are 3 pitchers with double-digit wins. Phil Niekro of the Braves has 11. Bob Gibson has 10. And Louis Tiant has 10 with Boston. I looked at in real life this week. Bob Gibson won his. Let me look. If you'll just bear with me for a moment. Bob Gibson won his 211th win as a Cardinal. That put him at the time as having the most wins as a member of the St. Louis Cardinals. He's actually ahead of that total in my APC universe. He has 215 wins. He said he figures he has no chance to get 300 wins, but his goal remains to win 20 games in a season. For me, he has won at least 20 games the last 4 years in a row, winning 20 in both 71 and 70, 27 and 69, and 22 and 68. He also won 22 back in 1962. In my universe here, he's a three-time Cy Young Award winner, winning it in 62, 68, and 69. And on Saturday, Pittsburgh beat Chicago 10-1. That moved Pittsburgh into first place ahead of the Mets in the AL East. Kansas City beat Minnesota 1-0. Kansas City remains a half game behind Oakland. Roger Nelson threw a shutout for the Royals. The same day, Oakland beat California 5-2. So that put California a game and a half behind Oakland. So they're in third place behind Oakland and Kansas City. And in a doubleheader against Baltimore and Detroit, Baltimore swept Detroit. Baltimore winning 4-3 in the first game of the doubleheader. Boog Powell hit 2 home runs. Game 2, Baltimore beat Detroit 6-1. Jim Palmer threw a one-hitter. The only hit he gave up was a home run to Aurelio Rodriguez. Detroit only had 2 base runners in the whole game. And Terry Crowley hit 2 home runs for Baltimore. Baltimore remains in first place. They have the largest lead of any of the 4 division leaders. They're 3 games ahead of New York. In the AL West, Oakland leads. They're a half game ahead of Kansas City. In the NL East, Pittsburgh leads. They're a game ahead of both Chicago and New York. In the NL West, Cincinnati leads, and they're a game ahead of Los Angeles. And then on Sunday, besides the Indians splitting their doubleheader with Minnesota, the Indians have dropped down into 4th place. They're in a 3rd place tie, actually, with Boston. And they're both 5 games out. So I think anything can happen still. Oakland swept a doubleheader with California. Blue Moon Odom pitched a shutout in the first game. And Kansas City swept a doubleheader with Minnesota. So that keeps them at a half game behind Oakland. We're about getting close to the halfway point, about 4 weeks away from the All-Star game, which will be, let me check the exact date. All-Star game will be on Tuesday, June 25th, or July 25th, so yeah, a month away. And this year it will be in Atlanta. And I gotta believe that the National League team is gonna be really wanting to avenge the beatdown that they got last year in Detroit when the AL won 21-2. I saw that, like some Cleveland Indians news, I saw that Gabe Paul went on a scouting trip out west to see Indians farm clubs in Portland and Reno. In Portland native Ron Lolich is leading the PCL in hitting And the Indians called him up this week to take place of Chris Chambliss, who was left the team for, let me see how long he's going to be gone. He left for military reserve duty. And he will be gone until the end of the month, the end of June. Alex Johnson got hurt, and with Frank Duffy being injured, the Indians brought Adolfo Phillips back up from Portland, and they also had to call up Jack Heidemann from Portland on kind of an emergency because it was like literally like days after Fred Stanley was traded to San Diego. Frank Duffy got hurt, so they had to bring up Jack Heidemann, who's recovering from knee surgery. And I don't know if he's going to see any action before Duffy gets back, but he's basically there for insurance purposes. And then one thing I saw from Reno, Gay Paul came back and he was raving about a rookie from Reno, a second baseman named Dwayne Kuiper. So if you're an Indians fan, remember that name, Dwayne Kuiper. You heard it here first. And once again, that's the wrap up for week 10. Sorry this got delayed. I got sidetracked with a couple things. I had several visits to the VA and whatnot, and I got sucked into a couple books that I just like couldn't put down, and I also started playing the '94 Indians and the 1916 Indians as well. This is the project 1972 that I've been looking forward to the most, with not just the Indians but also with the Cavs and the upcoming Cleveland Crusaders. And I felt like I was like moving through it too quickly, and I wanted to like slow it down a little bit. But I will be back probably within a day or two with Monday Night Baseball, and then the game of the week and Cleveland Indians baseball. This weekend, the Indians are facing, let me see. This weekend, the Indians will be in Milwaukee. They've got games coming up with the Red Sox at Cleveland Stadium, and then they move on to Milwaukee. Milwaukee's in fifth place. Yeah, let's see what they got after Milwaukee. If they got Detroit, maybe. No, after Milwaukee, they go to New York. So once again, I hope you're enjoying my 1972 season. I've been enjoying it. The Indians are playing better than I expected, really. Their pitting seems a little hit and miss sometimes, but their starting pitching's been really good. Tidrow is coming along good now, and it looks like Wilcox is too. Wilcox, in real life, had a. I've seen it described sometimes as strep throat and sometimes as mono early in the season, and that he never really recovered from that during the season. And the bullpen remains a little spotty, especially Denny Riddleberger especially seems like he's been inconsistent coming out of the bullpen. But he's got a record of 3-1. He's got one save, but he's had a couple of bad outings. But yeah, he's a little inconsistent, and Steve Mingori, he's a hard thrower. He seems like he's getting better command of his pitches. But I mean, the Indians are in third place. They're one game over 500. They have a record of 29-28. And at this point in the season, in real life, they were having trouble winning games. Like with mine, they started on a 4-game losing streak after getting swept by Oakland. Then they lost to Minnesota. Then they beat Minnesota. Then they lost 3 in a row again, and then they won their latest game against New York. So they've right now they're on a bit of a skid. They've only won 2 of their last 9 games. So hopefully they can get it together this week against the Red Sox and the Brewers. This will be the first time they played Boston since the first week of the season. All right, that's all I have for right now. And thank you for listening.